Okay, think about this for a second. In the U.S., every year, about the same number of people die from medical misdiagnosis as from car accidents.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty startling, right?
Yep.
And it really slams home just how vital it is to be, a constant learner, to adapt, to try and understand things more deeply.
Absolutely.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into something, well, fundamental really, for navigating this world that just keeps changing so fast.
Mhm.
We're talking about the core principles of continuous learning and maybe how we can cultivate a mindset that actually, thrives on growth.
Yeah, that thriving part is key.
Exactly. We've pulled together some really powerful ideas that explore why this ongoing learning isn't just like a nice to have anymore. It's basically the bedrock for staying relevant, for achieving your goals.
Right. It's becoming essential.
We're going to unpack some of the psychological roadblocks, the things that can trip us up, and the surprisingly crucial role that failure plays, or embracing failure, I should say.
That's a big one.
Totally. And also some practical strategies, things you can actually do to weave continuous learning into, like, your daily life.
Good. Actionable stuff.
Yeah. Think of this as your kind of express route to grasping not just what learning is, but maybe more importantly, how to do it effectively.
It's really striking, actually, how our sources keep coming back to this concept of a learning economy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just theory anymore. It's like the reality we're all operating in now. And in this economy, if you stand still, if you neglect to learn and evolve, well, there's a huge risk.
Which is?
Irrelevance.
Yeah.
Just becoming irrelevant. One of the pieces we looked at had this great quote, "The learn-it-all will always do better than the know-it-all."
Oh, I like that. Simple but powerful.
Exactly. Thriving today isn't about how much you already know. It's about your commitment to keep learning, to constantly out-learning people around the globe, as one source put it.
Without learning people. Oh,
Yeah. The learn-it-all wins because they're adaptable,
yeah.
right? They're focused on picking up new skills, not just resting on, old knowledge. They get that expertise changes.
Okay, so this learning economy. Let's dig into that a bit more. It sounds maybe a little abstract at first.
Sure. But when you break it down, it's actually quite clear.
Mm,
Our sources are saying that the real value today comes from things like customization.
tailored solutions.
Yes, exactly. And adapting quickly when things change. And genuine innovation. And guess what drives all of that?
Learning.
Learning. It's not just collecting facts. It's the ability, the agility to take in new stuff, think about it critically, and then, crucially, apply it in new ways.
Right. Application is key.
Totally. And connecting this back, there's almost this weird paradox with learning,
How so?
Well, the more you really learn and understand, the more you realize.
How much you don't know.
Precisely. You become acutely aware of this vast landscape of stuff you haven't grasped yet. But here's the thing. It's not discouraging. No, it actually becomes a catalyst. It fuels more curiosity, more exploration. It's that little niggle that, oh, I don't get that yet, that keeps pushing you forward.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, something that really jumped out at me from the sources was this whole idea about failure, actively embracing it.
Tom Peters.
Yeah, Tom Peters says, whoever tries the most stuff wins. Which feels wrong, doesn't it? A bit.
It does feel counterintuitive. We're wired to avoid mistakes.
Right. But the material makes this compelling case that our fear of failure, what is it, attachophobia?
Attachophobia, yeah.
Yeah.
That knot in your stomach.
That feeling can actually be a massive obstacle to learning.
So why are we so afraid of failing? The sources suggest our bodies can actually react like it's, well, physical discomfort, stress response kicks in.
Embarrassment, shame, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. But then you connect that to what Mark Zuckerberg said.
Yeah.
Something like, the only strategy guaranteed to fail is not taking risks.
Okay. So there's a trade-off.
Exactly. We instinctively avoid the sting of failure. But the cost of not trying, not learning because you didn't venture out, that can actually be much, much bigger in the long run. Our gut says play it safe.
But maybe the biggest risk is playing it too safe.
That seems to be the message. And apparently research suggests we need the potential upside, the gain, to feel like it outweighs the perceived risk by like a factor of 2.
Wow, 2 times. That's a high bar our brains set.
It is.
And it's amazing how our minds can kind of mislead us about failure, too. There's this thing called impact bias.
Right, impact bias.
Where we massively overestimate how bad we'll feel and for how long when something goes wrong.
Yeah, we build it up in our heads. But the reality the research shows is that the emotional hit is often, way less intense and doesn't last nearly as long as we fear.
So we're bad at predicting our own feelings about failure.
Seems like it. And there's another layer to the fundamental attribution error.
Okay, what's that?
Well, when we mess up, we tend to blame external stuff, right? Bad luck, the task was too hard, the dog ate my homework.
Guilty. Yeah.
But when we see someone else fail, we're much quicker to think, oh, they just weren't skilled enough or they didn't try hard enough. We attribute it to them.
Ooh, that's uncomfortable, but true.
It's important because it shows how we can stop ourselves from learning from our own mistakes if we just blame circumstances instead of looking at our own role.
And then there's just plain old wanting to protect our ego, right? Downplaying failure because it feels like it reflects badly on us.
Absolutely. That self-image protection thing is powerful.
But the sources argue for flipping this completely, don't they? Like, we need to destigmatize failure, talk about it.
Exactly. Bringing those struggles, those setbacks out into the open. Just talking about them with yourself, with others, helps normalize it. It reframes failure as just part of the process, a necessary part.
Shifting the focus from, oh no, I failed, to, okay, what can I learn here?
Precisely. And don't forget the risk of not trying new things. The risk of the status quo. As one quote put it, to learn, success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm.
Keeping that enthusiasm up, that's the challenge.
It is. But think about Pal's Sudden Service, that fast food chain. They're known for incredible quality and constant improvement.
Right, super efficient, great quality.
Well, while it wasn't spelled out, you have to assume their success involves tons of experimenting. Trying things, seeing what doesn't work, learning from it, tweaking.
So failure is baked into their improvement cycle.
It has to be. That continuous loop of trying, learning, adapting. It clearly leads to good things for them.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Talk about mindset. Our sources mention something called outcome bias.
Yes, outcome bias.
Which is basically focusing too much on the result, right? And not enough on the process that got you there.
Exactly. We judge a decision based purely on whether it worked out, not on whether the decision-making process itself was sound.
And this ties directly into Carol Dweck's work, doesn't it? Growth mindset versus performance mindset.
Absolutely central, yeah. A growth mindset is that basic belief that, your abilities, your intelligence aren't fixed. You can develop them through effort, through persistence.
Versus a fixed mindset, where you think you're either good at something or you're not.
Right. And the research is pretty clear. A growth mindset is linked to happier employees, more innovation, more willingness to take risks.
And better performance overall.
And better performance, yeah. It encourages you to focus on the journey, the learning itself, bumps and all, not just the final score.
It feels like we kind of lose something we had as kids, The sources mention how kids ask way more questions than adults.
Yeah, that statistic is amazing. That natural curiosity just seems to fade. Or maybe we suppress it.
Maybe we get afraid of looking like we don't know things.
Could be. Which connects perfectly to that Marshall Goldsmith quote. What got you here won't get you there.
Ah, such a good one. The skills that made you successful yesterday aren't necessarily what you need tomorrow.
Exactly. So you have to keep learning, keep adapting. That's the heart of Kaizen. Continuous improvement. Questioning everything, every process.
Always asking why.
Yes. And it's not just about work. The sources even link being curious, being inquisitive, to better physical and mental health.
Interesting. So asking questions is good for you.
Apparently so.
It's also amazing how much we can just miss.
Yeah.
If we're not paying attention, not curious. Like
Yeah.
that gorilla experiment.
Those are selective attention tests.
Yeah.
Classic. People are so focused on counting basketball passes, they completely miss a guy in a gorilla suit walking through the middle.
It just shows how tunnel vision we can get. And then we've got these biases working against us too, right? Availability bias.
Confirmation bias.
Huge obstacles. Availability bias, we overweight information that's easy to remember, that comes to mind quickly.
Like recent news or vivid stories.
Exactly. And confirmation bias, we actively look for and favor information that confirms what we already believe. And we ignore stuff that challenges us.
Which makes objective learning really hard. Very hard. That's why the idea of strong opinions, weakly held, is so useful.
Okay, explain that.
It means, form opinions based on the best evidence you have right now. Be confident in them. But, and this is the crucial part, stay open. Be willing to change your mind completely if new evidence comes along.
So don't get too attached to your own ideas.
Right. And surround yourself with different views. Build a decision-making cabinet, so to speak, with people who disagree with you. They'll challenge your assumptions.
And constantly ask yourself,
why might I be wrong? And then dig deeper. Why? That simple question can unlock so much.
now, it's easy to think learning is just about constantly doing, constantly absorbing. But the sources really stress something else too.
Yes, reflection and recharging.
You can't just be go, go, go all the time. It's not sustainable, is it? Or even effective.
Not at all. Think about IBM back in the day. Thomas J. Watson Sr. Their slogan was simply, think.
Just think. Yeah. A reminder to actually pause and contemplate.
And that slower conscious processing, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
It lets your brain make connections between different ideas, helps you really internalize things.
Build understanding, not just collect data points.
Exactly. And that builds self-efficacy, that feeling of, I can do this, which fuels more learning. You know the saying, experience tells you what to do.
Confidence allows you to do it. Love that.
It fits perfectly here.
The sources also mention action bias, our tendency to just want to do something.
Yeah, even if doing nothing is actually the better strategy, the goalie example is perfect.
Right, the penalty kicks. Statistically, staying put is often better, but they almost always dive.
Because diving feels like doing something proactive. It reminds me of the progress principle, don't confuse action with actual progress.
Just being busy isn't the same as moving forward.
Not at all. And on the flip side, there's the danger of too much action, too much work. Crochet death from overwork.
That's terrifying. It really highlights the need for rest.
Absolutely. Which is why things like scheduling specific time for learning and reflection are so important. Like literally putting it in your calendar.
And using tools like pre-mortems and after-action reviews.
Yes. Pre-mortems thinking ahead about how things could fail. After-action reviews looking back honestly at what happened. Both build reflection into the process.
Even boredom might have a role.
Surprisingly, yes. Moments of boredom can actually spark creativity. Let the mind wander a bit.
And don't forget the physical side exercise. It can actually increase the size of the hippocampus.
Yeah, the part of the brain key for memory and learning. So moving your body helps your brain learn.
The big takeaway here seems to be, watch out that you're not just staying busy to avoid the hard work of actual thinking.
That's a great way to put it. Busyness as an avoidance tactic.
Okay, so we need the right environment, the right mindset, time for reflection. What about the actual engine? Motivation.
Motivation. Absolutely crucial for the long haul. The sources really emphasize intrinsic motivation. Doing it because you want to, not just because you have to.
And a big part of that seems to be authenticity, just being yourself.
It does. It sounds a bit soft maybe, but when you're authentic, you're creating a more positive emotional state for yourself.
Yeah.
And that positivity actually broadens your thinking.
Interesting. So being yourself makes you a better learner.
In a way, yeah. You're not wasting energy trying to be someone else. Colin Powell said, perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. That positive, authentic energy helps.
And it's not just about raw talent either. Isaac Newton's quote.
Right. My powers are ordinary, only my application brings me success. It's about the effort, the persistence.
Which links to focusing on strengths, right? The
Yeah.
sources suggest that's more effective than constantly trying to fix weaknesses.
Generally, yes.
Wow.
The research says we're like 6 times more engaged when using our strengths.
6 times. That's huge.
It is. So double down on what you're good at. But, and this is important, you do need to address any weaknesses that are genuinely holding you back. Critical flaws, you know.
So be strategic about it. Maximize strengths. Fix critical weaknesses.
Exactly. And to know what those are, you need self-awareness, which means fighting things like the Lake Wobegon effect.
Where everyone thinks they're above average.
Precisely. We tend to overestimate ourselves. So you absolutely need feedback, honest, constructive feedback from people you trust.
Gotta know where you really stand.
Yep. And don't lose that sense of wonder. Einstein talked about it getting so lost in something you enjoy that time just vanishes. That's fertile ground for learning.
That childlike state of wonder.
Exactly.
And while deep expertise is good, we shouldn't get too specialized. Need variety.
Right. Innovation often comes from combining old ideas in new ways. If you only know one field really deeply, you might miss those cross connections.
Like the Émile Chartier quote, nothing is more dangerous than an idea when it's the only one you have.
Perfect. The old, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail problem. Variety keeps your toolkit broad.
Which brings us nicely to relationships and teams. Because we don't learn in a vacuum.
Not at all. Google's Project Aristotle again, huge study.
What did they find were the keys to high-performing teams?
It wasn't just about individual brilliance. It was much more about team dynamics, psychological safety, dependability, structure, meaning, impact. And also, interestingly, prior experience working together.
So teams that have worked together before tend to do better.
Up to a point, yes.
Yeah.
Familiarity seems to breed efficiency and trust, maybe up to around 5 years, the data suggested. Our interactions with others really shape our motivation, how we learn, what we learn.
And relationships can provide pro-social motivation. Helping others helps us.
Yeah, that desire to support others can be a powerful motivator for our own growth, too.
But just adding more people isn't always the answer, right? Fred Brooks.
The mythical man month. Classic. Brooks's Law. Adding manpower to a late software project makes it later.
Because of the communication overhead, coordination, complexity?
Exactly. More people doesn't automatically mean faster progress. And Emerson's quote fits here, too. No man can sincerely help another without helping himself. Learning is often reciprocal.
So summing up those mindsets for learning. Focused.
Fast, frequent, and flexible, all needing constant attention.
Okay, so finally, how do we actively cultivate this? In ourselves, maybe as leaders.
Well, it starts with being present, really showing up, and bringing your authentic self, your best self.
Seeing the world as opportunities, not threats.
That's a huge mindset shift.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, encourage inquiry.
Yeah.
Foster curiosity in yourself and others.
And leadership seems to be shifting too. Less taskmaster, more inspirational.
Definitely. Moving towards passion-based leadership. People are motivated by work that interests them, challenges them, feels meaningful.
Like the Steve Jobs quote, "The only way to do great work is to love what you do."
Exactly. It's about tapping into that intrinsic drive, connecting what people do day to day to the bigger picture, making them feel valued for their effort and their results.
Trying to get people from saying, "It's my job," to, "I love my job."
That's the goal, a culture where learning and passion thrive.
Absolutely. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the maybe top 2 or 3 takeaways?
Okay. I'd say, first, truly embrace failure. Don't just tolerate it. See it as a catalyst for growth. That's huge.
Right, failure as data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second, actively cultivate that growth mindset. Believe you can learn and improve. It impacts everything: happiness, innovation, performance.
Believing is achieving, kinda.
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
And third, never stop asking questions. Keep that childlike curiosity alive. Inquiry is essential for adapting and understanding.
Embrace failure, growth mindset, stay curious.
Got it. Those feel like the core pillars.
Okay, so here's a final thought for everyone listening. Take a moment, maybe later today, and think about just one area, could be work, could be personal, where maybe, just maybe, a fear of failure is holding you back, keeping you from learning something new or trying something different. And then ask yourself, what's one small experiment, something low stakes, manageable? What could you try this week just to nudge that fear a little, to open the door to something new?
A small act of courage.
Exactly, because often it's those small steps that lead to the biggest leaps in learning and growth down the line.
Great challenge.
So keep exploring these ideas. Think about how continuous learning applies to, well, everything you're interested in. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Your shortcut to being well informed.